back to Where in the World, where we have real conversations with young professionals about life and career, all while attempting to guess where in the world they are. That's right. We are back. We had some technical difficulties, y'all, but we are back in it. Uh, we're going to learn something new about our guests and what it's like to forge your own career path as a young professionals. And when we say young, we're really talking about a state of mind. You'll learn by watching this web series that your career will take many dips and turns over time. And just when you think you've made it, you might have to scratch it all and start from scratch. That's just the way it goes, and we ride the tide. I am your host, Clary Johnson, and I'm joined today by Stan Chambers, who is a communication strategist, content leader, and creative storyteller, currently serving as an HR content and knowledge manager at Gilead Sciences. The big, hairy question we're asking today is, how can young professionals tap into their transferable skills to unlock new career paths? But before we jump in, let's do some housekeeping. This is a mini web series game show. The questions will range from standard interview like questions to more personal questions about our guests' careers. You'll notice we're both here today with different backgrounds. In between questions, we'll each have an opportunity to guess where in the world the other person is. The first person to guess correctly wins. Our guests can ask for clues along the way, and our audience can help out also by asking for clues in the chat. So please join me in welcoming Stan.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up? We can hear each other
Yeah,
now.
right,
That's
right.
awesome.
Miracles happen.
So Stan, you and I met a few months ago at Squarespace Circle Day. We talked a lot about career, and you shared a little bit of your journey with me, and you talked about some of the challenges you face with career growth. I was so inspired by your positivity. You had me cracking up the entire time, and I really got the sense that you go with the flow and that you don't take yourself too seriously, that you take challenges as they come and you really just roll with it. And that's the energy I want to bring to the conversation today. So let's get started with our most commonly asked interview question. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay. So I'm a creative, first off. And I think when you're a creative, that bleeds into many other things. And so uh it bleeds into storytelling, it bleeds into strategy, it bleeds into working with various people and various ways of thinking. And so that's essentially what I do today. But getting here, that was quite the journey. So when I was an undergrad, the vision for my career was pretty simple. It was to start off at a small paper, um, then go to a medium-sized paper. I was a print reporter, and then go to a large paper like New York Times, Washington Post, coast there for like 20 or so years, retire and teach. Right? Very, very simple career plan. So small paper, killed it. Uh Medium paper, things were okay. And that's where I kind of hit a brick wall. And that's after 5 years, I was laid off and just thinking to myself, like, how do I use these skills? I didn't want to move. I was at the biggest newspaper in my area. So for me, I was able to transfer my skills into quite a few industries, actually. And so just thinking about my career path, and I might be skipping ahead a little bit here, but just the ability to, like you said, to adjust and roll with the punches, like that will really, really, really get you far. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, you talked a lot about starting, going through a path, encountering some challenges, making a pivot, and continuing on your journey and continuing on your road. And so we're going to talk a lot more about that today. But before we get into it, I've got to start by guessing where in the world you are.
This might be pretty easy.
Well, I mean,
Or not.
okay, so are we in let me just start. I'm going to start just so everyone knows. We aren't a podcast yet, but a podcast is coming in the future. So I
Ooh,
like to begin by describing exactly what I'm seeing for our listeners. Okay.
okay.
So what we're looking at is a skyline, a city skyline. So any city skyline that you think of, it looks like that. And it looks like we're in the evening time. The sun isn't totally set, but it's almost there. So it's definitely dusk. And there is a body of water. For some reason, people on the show love to be near water. And
Right.
so
So, it just comes natural.
I think so. I think so. So there's definitely some water here. A pretty large body of water. It's not, I would say it must be an ocean, and if not an ocean, then definitely a very large lake, like one of the Great Lakes. Um, Lots of buildings, lots of colorful buildings going on, and then there looks like a spire, like a tall, narrow um building. And if I knew what that building was, I think it would give away where you were, but I'm
Right.
not sure where that is. So
Okay.
I'm gonna guess that you are in Seattle.
Ah, so what's funny is that's a good guess. And what's funny about that is I was in Seattle last year. Beautiful city. Can't wait to go back. But no,
Yeah.
not Seattle.
I think you're really going to appreciate the sound effects. That's the sound effects for no.
So I didn't hear anything.
Oh, really?
No, come on, StreamYard, what we doing? What are we doing?
Well, I guess I'll have to just enjoy them all to myself.
Well, I hope the audience, but at least the
Oh,
audience heard, and you can
yes.
like post in the comments what it was because I don't know what it was. I didn't hear it. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's your turn to guess where I am.
Okay, so okay, there's not that much to describe here.
Okay.
I can tell our listeners it is not a skyline. Um, it is inside of a home. Um, a home that probably needs to be renovated. I mean, it looks good. It looks good, but it's aged.
Judgy.
Um, Not judgy, just telling the world, telling the people what I see. I see a wood floor,
Mhm.
a very scuffed wood floor. I see a fireplace. I see walls. Uh, there are walls. They are kind of like that off-white color
Mm,
that you see a lot.
mhm.
I see two windows. I see a mirror. So I'm going to take a crazy guess and say this is the living room in your grandparents' house.
No, but you are close in that we are in a home, and you could say that this person lived a very long time ago. So, the person who used to live here um, is very well known for their writing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they studied engineering and chemistry
Oh,
because their father wanted them to study a subject more lucrative than writing.
okay. Oh, this is
That
gonna
is
be a long. It's gonna be a long night. Okay. All right.
well, let's get started then. All right, cool. So, next question. You did describe your career path for us, but tell us about a time when you had to pivot into a new career role. What was the opportunity? What did you do, and what was the outcome?
Hmm. So let me, I guess, paint the scene a little bit, if you will. So I was in Florida. This was 2018. I was at a TV station in the Tampa Bay area, and mentally, I had reached my ceiling. I was done with journalism just because I had a clear path of where I wanted to go in my career. And when I looked up and realized, wow, I'm gonna have to climb through a lot of crap to get there. And I had to really ask myself, was it worth it? And the answer I came up with was absolutely not. This is not something I'm going to sacrifice my soul just to get to a certain place. And so I started looking outside of journalism. And one of the things I realized early on was that, okay, I can write, I can edit, I can shoot pictures, I can create video, I can do communication strategy, I can do a lot of things that a lot of people can't do. There are a lot of smart people who can't write. There are a lot of creative people who don't really know their way around a camera. And so I saw myself as a Swiss Army knife of sorts. And I figured to myself, where, well, if I if I brand myself correctly, I can fit into a whole lot of other places. And that's what happened. And so I went from journalism to corporate. And yeah.
Yeah. So we share a lot in common. So we both have a background in journalism. My undergrad is actually in broadcast journalism. I didn't start off my career working in any newsroom. I began. I had some internships working in a couple of newsrooms. I worked at WGN, which is Chicago's very own station, and then I also worked as an operations person at WICD, which is in Champaign, which is in the community where I was going to school. So I was actually behind the cameras, working the audio. And then after that stint, that was during my undergraduate years, I went to graduate school, and that's when I got my first taste of corporate. So it was definitely making a transition from this journalistic uh this journalistic space. I realized that if I wanted to continue on that path, that I would need to be real passionate about it, because it was most likely that I was going to have to go work at some small time newspaper in the middle of nowhere, making
Mhm.
$20,000 a year. And I realized I just wasn't passionate. I wasn't passionate enough about it to do that. And I had to get real with myself that this is not what I wanted to do long term. Like, I knew if I wanted to be a broadcast journalist on a CNN or a BBC or some high profile station, that I was going to have to really, uh,
Grind.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Grind.
yeah. I was going to
And
grind for it, but I wasn't passionate enough about it to do that work.
I think sorry to cut you off, but you hit on
No, of
something
course.
very, very, very important.
Oh, tell me.
Passion.
Mm,
And so if one of the things I would tell people is, if you don't have the passion for something, find something else. Because I think a lot of people think, well, this is a job, I make good money, I can handle it. And in the beginning, absolutely. But I think that slowly yet surely, and this happened to me, slowly yet surely, it's gonna creep up in that dissatisfaction, and it's going to show in a way that you may not expect.
mhm.
So I think passion is critical.
Oh yeah, I mean, and here's the deal, right? A lot of times people, I think Gen Z or millennials are criticized because we run from hard work, but I don't think that's the case. I think we've seen that the comfortable, cushy, seemingly stable jobs are not comfortable, cushy, and stable. And that I think our generation really understands that your mental health really is takes priority over everything. And so I'm going to do something that I actually enjoy, and I'm going to try a lot of different things until I find that thing that I like to do. And I think that's totally fine. But the thing is that if you lack passion, or if you even lack an interest or an affinity for what you're doing, you're going to run into challenges with anything. And if you don't have like that internal force and drive to get you through that challenge, you're going to stall, you're going to feel stuck, you're going to feel stagnant, and you're going to be sitting there thinking, what am I doing? Like, how did I get here?
I'll give you I'll give you a snapshot into my current life.
Oh, yeah.
So, in my current role, well, let me preface by saying I am not a morning person. I
Neither am
spent most of my journalism career working nights. Loved it. So mornings, I hate mornings.
I.
But 3 days a week, I'm up at 6 a.m. Not because I have to, but I want to beat traffic. I am typically at my desk by 7:30 a.m. Some of you are just waking up. I'm already up, showered, dressed, eaten, commuting 25, 30 minutes at my desk, sitting down. And the reason and what drives me to do that, to be a quasi morning person, is the work.
Mm,
There's I have a genuine passion for what I'm doing because I'm able to part of it is it aligns with my skills and abilities and experiences. But I think more importantly, and I think this is missed a lot, I can connect my work to the bigger picture. When I watch the CEO who is, let's see, one, two, three, 4 layers above me, this guy doesn't know who I am. He might never even meet me. He might not even come to my office. But when he and his senior leadership, his executive leadership, talk about where the company is going, the big picture, those type of things, I can honestly say I know how my role connects to what they're saying. And that really helps to drive the passion for my work. I'll tell you, tomorrow I have 8 meetings. 8. And that's not the most I've had in one day. But it all relates to the work, which and because I have a passion for the work, I'm like, all right, let's go. Let's do it. Let's have these meetings. Let's get these results and let's keep it moving.
I'm so glad uh, that you said that about understanding where your work contributes to the bigger picture, because there's going to be a question about that. But
Ooh.
before we get to that question, I need to know where you are. So you are not in Seattle.
Yeah, no.
All right, so I have to triage this. I have to
Mhm.
narrow it down. Are you in the United States?
I am not.
You are not in the United States. Okay.
Nope.
Well, this makes it a little bit more challenging. Here's my guess. Are you in Japan?
No.
You
Not
are
bad guess. Not bad guess, but no.
okay. Well, give me a clue about this place.
Uh okay. A clue that won't give it away. Um okay. What genres of music are you really into?
Oh, that's a good question.
And it ties to my clue.
Well, so I like this question. I am a very lo-fi. So lo-fi music, anything, I have R&B roots, but I enjoy. I enjoy, yeah, lo-fi music for the most part. I know that
Okay.
sounds really odd.
No, 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 no,
I'm
no.
trying to think of any other genres of sound. So, for example, I was listening to SZA yesterday. I was listening to James Blake yesterday. I was listening. I listened to Travis Scott. I like Kid Cudi, like that. Those kind of like, oh, Janae Aiko, oh,
Wow, you
Cleo Soul.
like you're here, you're there, you're here, you're there. Yeah, but that's my playlist too, so I get it. Like,
Yeah,
okay, okay, okay.
and
So,
every now and then I'll bump some Metallica.
of course, of course, of course. Okay, so the clue is a well-known artist
Hmm.
who is from this place was criticized because another artist who I think is a legend personally um thought that his music didn't really fit with the genre. Yeah.
Ooh, I have an idea. As soon as you said music, I have an idea, but I'm
Okay.
gonna save it for the next.
Ah,
It's your turn.
I, I don't know. Zora Neale Hurston?
Wait, who?
Zora Neale Hurston?
No, but
Okay.
you're barking up the right tree for sure.
Yeah, my my literary knowledge is not as strong as it should be. So yeah, we're gonna be playing this all night. So
Well, possibly. So, this place is an Italianate style dwelling built in 1869. It is a three-story with basement, row house faced in brown stone and measuring 20 feet wide and 45 feet deep.
Okay, hold on. So is it in Harlem?
It is in Harlem.
Okay, okay. So New Yorker in the house. So when she said
Yes,
brownstone, I was like
yes,
either
yes,
Harlem or Brooklyn.
yes. It is Harlem.
um.
Well, no, you already had your guess, so you
Okay.
got to
Okay. Okay.
save it.
Fair. Fair. Fair.
You
Fair.
got
Fair.
to
Fair.
save
Okay.
it for the next round. Okay, cool. So, next question. Before this interview, you said learn the business if you want to be a boss. Kind of just said that a few minutes ago. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What are some practical steps that we can take as young professionals to learn the business while working in a support role? Is there anything in particular we should be paying attention to?
Google is your friend. Google can be your savior, and I say that as because you can get news alerts from Google straight to your email. And so whether a new company, a new industry, set those alerts up. So because sometimes you may get news about the company that you work at before they send out the official press release. Um, so that's one tip. Another tip is I would imagine just about every industry has some sort of publication, some news agency that specifically covers the industry. Make sure you subscribe to those, um, and so that will give you a broader perspective on the industry as a whole. But I think the biggest thing is to talk to people. You know, one of the things that I've learned in my career is that if you don't know something, but you front like you know something, there's going to be there's usually someone in the room that knows that you don't know what you're talking about. And you hope that they call you out in private versus in public. And so one of the things I've learned is, and I say this, it's, hey, look, I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. But what I don't know, I can find out. Let me get back to you on that. And so I think that genuine honesty really, really helps you. Um, but I say that to say that don't be afraid to ask questions. Hey, because so I work in pharma. Pharma, there are so many technical things that, at least unless you've worked in pharma or you have a degree in biology or chemistry, it's gonna take a while to catch on to things. And so even at my stage in my career, I'm not afraid to say, okay, what does that mean? How does this fit into what we're doing? And it shows initiative. It shows interest. It shows, as we were talking earlier about passion, it shows that, I don't know if I go as far as passion, but it definitely shows that you have a genuine interest in your work and trying to connect your work to the bigger picture. So, just to recap, I would say Google's your friend. I would say look up the industry rags and make sure you subscribe to them. And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, I mean, I've said time and time again on the show, and know at this point maybe I sound like a broken record, but the smartest people that I've worked with, or the people that I looked up to the most, especially during my time in corporate, were the folks who were unashamed to admit when they didn't know or when they weren't particularly great at something. And they knew their strengths and weaknesses. And not only did they know them, but they were vocal about it and they advocated for themselves and they knew when to seek out help and they knew when to seek out support to support areas where maybe they weren't as strong. And so we've got to get comfortable with not knowing everything, with not being perfect, with not having all of the answers, with not being strong at everything. We've got to get comfortable with that first. And I know it's hard, especially if you're coming right out of college and you're stepping into a new role and you want to prove yourself. You want to prove that you're capable. You want to prove that they hired you and you're the perfect fit and they didn't make a mistake. You want to prove that you can do the job, that you are capable, that you are intelligent, that um, you've got what it takes to succeed. But a big part of that is realizing that a lot of times when you're joining these companies, you are starting from scratch.
Hmm.
Most of the time, unless it's something that you have a ton of like background knowledge and interest in, right? Most of the time, you are going to be learning a whole new system.
Like I am
And
right now.
you're going to be learning a whole new vocabulary. You're going to be learning a whole new industry. You're going to be learning a whole new way of working, way of collaborating. You're going to have whole new people that you're working with, a whole new community. You're going to have whole new communications channels. And it can feel really overwhelming. And so if you don't give yourself the grace to not have all the answers, you're going to be even more overwhelmed because not only are you going to be learning something new in all of these new ways and facets, but you're going to be feeling really down on yourself because you're going to feel like you're not good enough and you're not meeting the bar.
Now, what I will say, because you're 1,000% correct, but I will add sort of like a caveat, if you will. It's like school.
Hmm.
So, okay, at the beginning of the semester, you might not have a clear understanding of quantum physics. Understood. That's why you're in the class. But by the end of the class, you is there's this expectation that you need to have an understanding of quantum physics. And so you were saying earlier about learning a new system. That's what I'm doing right now at my role. So it's okay that I have questions that I have to, the I may have to like some may have to repeat themselves, like walk through that again. But this time next year, I cannot be where I am today. And so while it is important and I think it's vital to give ourselves grace, at the same time we have to progress. And I would hope that a lot of managers will give their direct reports grace, especially those young in their career. But 6 months, 8 months, a year down the line, it's time to start producing some results.
Absolutely. And at that point as well, and here's what I will say as well is the other quality of people that I look up to as well is that they become a thought leader in something. Whether it's, oh, that's the person that I can come to if I need to get connected to this internal resource because they know everybody, right? Like they're great at networking internally. I know that if I have a question or I need to get connected to somebody, this person can help me. If they can't help me connect it, they know how to get me that connection, right? Or I know this person that I can go to because they always have really great ideas, right? Like they're the person that you go to brainstorm an idea, and they're likely going to have a solution, or they're going to have an idea that can help lead me to a solution. Or I know this person is really, really good at managing time and tasks and project management. And maybe they can give me some tips about how to approach a project that I have and I'm not quite sure where to get started. So the other thing that I would say as well is try to focus on getting good at one thing, right? Like try to be a thought leader in one space, that go-to person. So when I stepped into my first corporate role, I was in corporate communications, and I was the person that people would come to if they needed to tell a story internally or if they needed to get a message out to the other associates, to our employees internally. Like I was that person, right? Our department was that department, but I was the person that they people would come to, that would approach to get this message out. And so Stan, you talk a lot about branding, but that became a part of my internal brand, right?
Mhm.
And whenever people saw me, I always had a camera on me, or when people saw me, I was always had my notebook and my pen, or I was doing some kind of interview. I became known as the person who could help disseminate information. And so, as you're progressing, look for those opportunities to become a thought leader in a specific space. Um, and I wanted to talk a lot about kind of growing within a role and finding the impact that your specific role has on the organization. Because I know there have been times when I've been roles and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing or how this is contributing to the bigger picture. And when you can really see that clearly, it can make the world of difference of how you see your job, of how you perform in your job, and your relationships with other people. Because when you understand your role and how it contributes to the bigger picture, well, that's the beginning of becoming a thought leader in a space, right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
then you can communicate that to other people, to your team. One of the things that I would say is don't be afraid to raise your hand for opportunity, specifically for opportunities that connect with business planning. So when we talk about business planning, whenever any organization you go into is going to have some kind of fiscal calendar. Typically, it's a quarterly calendar. Some organizations I found actually their quarterly calendar is a little bit skewed. It's not the same as everybody else's quarterly calendar. I didn't know that. I thought everybody's on the same quarterly calendar.
Me too.
Um, so find out what your fiscal calendar is. And Stan, you can relate to this. Also find out what is the product roadmap internally.
Mm.
If you can get your hands on that information, then you already have a very great advantage within your organization. Knowledge that not a lot of people actually have access to.
How think another way to think of it is, how does my role contribute to the corporate strategy
Yes.
internally and externally? And I understand that, coming to that answer is easier for some roles than others. But so when you're a professional, more than likely you're going to have to create a career plan. And you're going to have to set your goals for the year. And these are the goals that at the end of the year, your manager is going to come to you and say, "Well, did Stan do his job this year? Let me check his goals." Some companies, it's just the manager assessing your performance, and then other companies, you get to do your own self assessment, but the manager gets to do theirs too. Uh, and so I've had it both ways. And so if you're able to align your goals with the if it's the overall company strategy, if it's the strategy for your unit, for your team, then you're seen as an asset. And it shows that you're able to think broadly and connect what the business is doing to your job.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, with that being said, I'm trying to connect where you are
Ah, yes. Okay. And
with
I have a
this
guess.
clue you
There you
gave
are.
me about music.
Yes.
I'm going to guess you are in South Korea.
No.
Oh, I was already thinking you already know I was thinking K-pop.
Ah, no, 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 no,
Dang.
no. And again, people, for those listening at home, she is giving very good suggestions.
They're just
So,
all wrong.
so I mean, they're all wrong, yes, but they're all good guesses. Like, I didn't think I was gonna like stump you like this. I was like, okay, all right, all right, this is good. Okay, it's my turn. All right.
Well, no, no, no. Wait a
Oh,
minute.
oh,
I need a clue about this place.
I gave you a clue.
I need another.
Another clue.
Yes.
Hmm. What other clue can I give that won't like give it away?
Just so you're not in the United States.
No. Um, this city has three professional sports teams. Wait, four professional sports teams. Blah blah blah. Four professional sports teams.
For professionals. Kenneth is asking, can we guess? Yes, Kenneth. You can guess. Or you can ask for clues as well. So I have a lifeline in the comments. So
What? Whoa! Oh, this is what we're doing? Okay.
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Kenneth, let's go. Let's do it. He probably knows the answer. He's like, I'm from there. Like,
All right. Okay. Well, Stan, it is your turn to guess where I am in the
all
world.
right, I'm just gonna start spitting names. James Baldwin.
No, but what's hilarious is I almost chose James Baldwin, and I'm so glad I
Ah,
did it.
man.
But
Okay.
you're not
Ooh,
far off.
I got another one. I got another one. But
Hold on.
we'll see. I'm
I'm
holding on
gonna
to it.
I'm gonna give you a clue about this place.
Okay.
So after he left Colombia without a degree, this person traveled around South America and Europe. In the early 1920s, following their departure from Colombia, they worked at a range of odd jobs, including kitchen worker, delivery boy, vegetable farmer, mess boy on a ship on the Hudson River, and even a crew member on a merchant steamer bound for Africa.
Langston Hughes.
Oh gosh. Wait. You're
Am I right?
supposed to save the guess
Wait, hold on,
for
pause.
the
Wait, hold on, pause.
next
Am I right?
round. Yes.
Let's go. Let's go.
How did
Let's
you
go.
know
Let's go.
this?
Let's
How did
go.
you
Come
know?
on. Come on.
How did you know?
Brooklyn, let's go. Let's go, Brooklyn. Let's go. Um, I just guessed. To be honest, I mean, when you said Harlem, when I figured it was Harlem, I was like Brownsville, Harlem. Okay, and then you mentioned the 1920s. I was like, okay, that's my man right there. That's my man right there. So
Yes,
that's
this is the home of Langston Hughes. Kenneth is giving you 3 bells.
sweet.
um, as we know, obviously this is Black History Month. Um, Langston Hughes is, or was a poet. He was a prolific writer, a novelist, a playwright, a social activist, and a journalist, among many other things. In his poetry, he took his inspiration from Walt Whitman, Paul Laurence Dunbar, and Carl Sandburg. Some of his short stories, such as the brief piece Thank You, Ma'am, were widely studied in schools and colleges in the U.S. So, uh, prolific writer. He was also African American, and he was a avid traveler. Yeah, cool.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Next. So next question. All right, cool. So, all right, Stan. So, imagine we are in an interview and you're interviewing for a role in a new industry. Let's say you're a communicator and you want to go into computer programming. What would it sound like to market your transferable skills? Take us through this journey.
Computer programming? No
It
idea.
doesn't have to it doesn't have to be computer programming, but
Oh,
give us an idea of like if you were stepping into an interview and you wanted to market your transferable skills for an industry that you are not currently in but you want to step into, what would that sound like?
first, I need to show that I understand the industry. I don't need to sound like an expert, but I need to understand basic terms, right? I need to understand um recent events that's happening in the industry. So first I need to understand the industry. And then second, I need to understand the role. I mean, if you're in an interview, I would imagine you applied for the job and you apply to the job knowing that you could connect what you've done to what you want to do. And that really needs to be highlighted in the interview. So I'll give you an example. Um, so my current role. So in my current role, I co-lead content strategy for an internal website. Now, within a pharmaceutical company. And so you might say, well, Stan, hold up. You said you was in journalism for all these years. How does that connect? And so how that connects is during my journalism career, I spent the last part of it working in digital on the TV side. And so I was a web editor for a TV station in Florida. For a TV station in North Carolina. I was a digital content director for a TV station in Florida where I launched a digital team. More on that in a second. And I was a digital executive producer for a TV station also in Florida. Now, back to that director role. This is where I hired direct reports, but this is where I also created digital strategy. I created digital strategy. I redesigned the station's website. I designed the station's mobile app. And In my current role, I am designing websites. I am managing content. I am, while I'm working with an internal audience, it's still an internal audience. In knowing design structure, story structure, how to, um, you talk about omni-channel, you'll hear that a lot these days. How to create omni-channel content, how to create engaging content, all the things that I've done in news. And so I remember during my interview, I was able to give concrete examples of how my past roles connect with this current position. But a lot of it, it's the one thing I've realized as a fire truck runs by my building. I'm how can I say this? The hiring process is very subjective, and you can say the right things. You can look the look. You can be as polished as you can be and still not get the job. I've had that happen to where there have been a few instances where I was second place. And so another thing that I will say is all you can don't beat yourself up if you don't get a role. Um and I think for just for, for younger professionals, for older professionals, I mean, that's a lesson that we can all take home. And that's something that I had to endure uh, just a few months ago. And so all you can do is, like I was saying earlier, it's like you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know, and just focus on what you know and what you can do, and things will shake themselves out.
Thank you for saying that. And I like the way that you said that and how direct you were about don't beat yourself up if you don't get the role. But I'm going to add a caveat.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I need to add this one thing. I heard
Okay,
this
go for it.
yesterday, right? So during my job search, I changed my resume, not like, well, the wording and the look a few times.
Hmm.
So like I would like update the resume, put it out in the streets, give it like a week or two and see what happens. And if I don't get any response, I'm like, okay, maybe it's a resume, or maybe it's, I need more keywords. I mean, there are people whose whole jobs is this type of work. So Tuesday, um, I'm in my weekly stand up with my supervisor, and he pretty much unsolicited, well, not unsolicited, he complimented me on my resume design. He was like, that was the first thing he saw. He was like, wow, this resume is designed really, really well. I'm like, oh, shoot. Huh. So it does work. So all of that work paid off. But it goes back to, we were talking earlier about branding. So, okay, Stan's coming to the game with this real creative resume. He's done he's done all these things on paper, but now I need to back that up. And so when I get on the field, I need to show that okay, I am creative. I am this, that, and the third. And so I maybe we'll get into it a little bit later, but I cannot stress branding enough. And it starts It starts with the resume. It starts with the LinkedIn page. It starts with your social media. And so I remember when I was a hiring manager, when I had a candidate, I went on their Facebook. I went on there with X. Now I went on their X. Is that how you say it? I was on their IG. Like I looked them up because if your brand is all over the place, then how are you going to ensure that you're going to keep the brand, the corporate, the work brand straight? Something to think about.
That's deep. Um, and actually, we're gonna have a question about resume tips later, so I'm so glad you brought that up. The caveat I wanted to add is actually related to something you said earlier about how you can look the part, you can say all the right things, and you can still not get the job. And what I tell young professionals that I coach is 90% of your interview is actually body language. It's
Mm,
actually the energy that the other person that's sitting across from you feels during the interview. It's all about how they feel about you.
mhm,
What you say, how you dress, it all contributes to a positive perception. But at the end of the day, there has to be a genuine vibe that they feel from you,
mhm,
and they have to get that it has to be an energy transfer that it feels in alignment. And so showing up confidently is one way to increase your chances of getting a job. And how do we do that? Well, a lot of the things that Stan was saying. Read up on the news, find out what's happening with that company in the news.
mhm,
Check out their social media pages. They're definitely checking out yours.
mhm,
Look at their press releases. Find out what products, if it's a product based business, what products have they announced recently? If it's a service based business, have they won any awards? Right? Like, do your research so that when you step into that interview, you exude confidence because you're going to feel confident because you're going to know you're going to be excited to talk about these things after you've done the research. You're going to be excited to bring that to the table. And also, when you research, do research on the person who's interviewing you. If you don't know, ask. Okay.
look them
um,
up.
I,
They got
they
LinkedIn.
got a LinkedIn. It not look at, even if it's a recruiter, look them up. And I always tell everyone, find one thing that you've got in common with the person that you're going to be sitting and talking to, and take that with you. It could be you guys lived in the same state. Maybe you went to the same school. Maybe you do similar sports. You might find that you're in a similar organization. Do
Mhm.
that research first so that it doesn't feel like you're walking into a room talking to a stranger, right? And that's going to help you feel more at ease, and it's going to bring a sense of calm to the conversation.
You bring up a good point. Uh, because in that, what you said, I think one of the things that stands out is personality. Because you think of it this way: you would not be in this interview if the hiring manager didn't think you can do the job. So so then you know that, okay, because I've had this mindset. It's like, okay, if I'm being interviewed, then at least three other people are being interviewed. And then as you get farther and further along in the hiring process or the interview process, you're like, okay, I know I'm top two. I know I'm top three. And I'm going to assume that the person I'm going up against has a similar skill set. And so the question comes down to, well, how do I separate myself? And I think that's where personality comes in, but it's a delicate balancing act, because if you show too much personality, then the hiring manager might think like, oh, this person's going to be distracting. And if you show too little personality, then the hiring manager might think like, oh, this person's boring. Because one of the things that hiring managers are always determining, and you're not going to know this until you're in it, is how do you mesh well with the team? You can like let's take journalism for example. I could be a 10-time Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. I could have like 15 Emmys. I'm the best of the best. But if I'm an a-hole, I don't know if you can curse. I don't know if this is a family show. I don't know if you can curse on the show. But if okay, let me phrase it. If I'm difficult to work with, then the team suffers. So personality matters, I think.
Agreed. And speaking of personality, you've got a lot of personality going on behind you in this photo.
Oh, wow.
I'm really trying to find out. So I don't feel any closer. I'm gonna be honest, guys.
I mean, you went to the other side of the world, so
I
yes.
did. I did. Um okay, so I have two guesses here. Well,
Mhm.
really three in my mind.
Spit 'em out.
Are you in Asia?
No.
Okay. That's helpful. Um are we in Australia?
Um, bucket list trip, but no.
Okay, give me a clue about this place.
No, I can see how you would think Australia. I could see that. North America.
Oh, it is in North America,
Yes.
just not the United States.
Right.
Haha. Oh, I know what we are.
See, now, see, now it's
Oh,
starting
I
to
know
really
exactly what we
narrow. Right.
are.
And the answer
Yes. Wait,
is
well, I'll give it to you on the next one.
okay. All right. Actually, Google's.
And the
I
answer is Drake, but I'm just gonna save the answer.
You
So,
already know the answer.
all right. So here's a statistic from Zippia. Roughly 41% of people between the ages of 18 and 39 have thought about moving during the COVID-19 pandemic. And when we talk about moving, we mean switching jobs. So
Mhm.
41% of people between the ages of 18 and 39 have considered switching jobs during the COVID-19 pandemic, compared to just over 24% of people between the ages of 40 and 64, and 11% of people aged 65 and older. What are your thoughts about that?
I believe it. I mean, when you're idle, like most of the world was during the pandemic, you really have an opportunity to just slow down and just think about your place in the world.
Mm.
And so when you think about 18 to 39-year-olds, especially on the younger end, they're still trying to figure it out, you know? And they're like you said earlier, they're not afraid to like job hop because they're figuring it out. And so with the older population, I mean, I turn 45 next month. I mean, we're pretty
Congrats.
established. Thank you. We're pretty established. It's like, hey, like now at that age bracket, you're thinking about pensions. You're thinking about retirement. You're thinking about stocks and bonds. You're thinking about investments and property. And so those are things that require you to be a little more stable in where you are. So you're less risk adverse in that bracket. Whereas when you're younger, you're like, yo, like whatever I lose, I could build it back up. Oh, I lost my car. Well, you know what? I can get another car. Or, this housing situation didn't work out. Okay, I'll just go somewhere else. Oh, this job didn't work out. I'm 27. I'll figure it out. So that statistic really makes sense. Um, but I think for everyone, the pandemic really made us think about our morality. if you will. You turn on the news, you see body bags piled up outside hospitals. You can't go outside without a mask on. You Most of your social circle either have or had COVID or COVID like symptoms, and we really became isolated during the pandemic. And for me, for me, it was unique because at the time I worked for the North Carolina Healthcare Association, and I was the communications manager. So we were busier than ever. Um, but it did make me think because I did travel across the state. Um, I can say that I've been in a COVID ward, not as a patient. Uh, that was eye opening. And it really made me think about, well, what do I want to do with my life? Again, I'm 45. Uh, I often say that these next 20 years are gonna be my real money making years. And I think it was during the pandemic where I really committed to that. So moves that I'm making, career wise, just personal adventures, they have to count. And I think for people in the older bracket, that's like where we are. We really have to make it count. And then on top of that, family, kids, parents are getting older. So there's a chance that people in that age bracket are caregivers. And so when you have all of those elements together, and on top of that, there's a good chance maybe they've been at a job 5, 10, 15 years. It's like, okay, this is where retirement, this is where 401k really kicks in. And I don't want to screw that up because I don't have the time to make that up.
Thank you. So I think that was probably one of the best breakdowns of a statistic that I've heard on this show.
Oh,
Yeah, no, it was very thoughtful, very thorough, and you helped me to understand those numbers as well. And by the way, those numbers were taken from Zippia. I think I may have said that. But it's true. And what you when you were talking, it made me start to think about how what we need changes as we progress and giving ourselves permission. So when we're thinking about pivoting, it might be a situation where we're happy with where we are right now. We're like, this is working for me. But as our lives progress, as we develop families, as we become caregivers, our needs change. And that's why it's so important for us to ride the tide, because what we look for in a job may also morph and change, and that's okay. And I think we need to give ourselves permission to change our minds and try something new or to need something different. And that's actually going to lead us into one of our final questions of the night. But before we get there, I'm going to give Kenneth the honors because he's been joining us this entire time.
OVO, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, so the answer is Drake.
Hmm.
But I feel like that might be a little disrespectful to where you actually are, which is Toronto.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so the artist that you were talking about, so I'm guessing you're talking about Drake, and the other artist is likely, or is Drake or oh, who's the one who just went to jail for
Well,
shooting?
no, he go to jail.
No, for shooting Megan Thee Stallion,
Oh, what's his name?
Tory
Tory Lanez? Yeah,
Lanez.
no, not him. Mm-mm. no. Most Def, aka
Got you.
Yasmin Bey,
Okay.
um, he was asked what he thought of Drake's music,
Yeah.
and his answer was, it's the stuff you listen to at Target. And
But when was that comment made? Was it before
this
Drake
is like a few
blew
weeks
up?
ago.
Oh, a few weeks ago.
This
Oh,
is a
okay.
few
So
weeks
we
ago.
still on that. Okay. We still
Right.
on that.
My feed was hot on that for like 2 days, and then nothing. But I was conflicted. So if I haven't said it like 20 times already, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hmm.
So Most Def is a hero to me,
Mm.
and I like Drake.
Yeah.
I like Drake.
And so what if I listen to this music in Target
Right. Or in my car. Like, who
or on the
cares?
elevator? Like,
Right. I mean, either when you, because like the way I would have flipped it, and of course, Monday morning quarterbacking this, it's like if I was Drake, I'd be like, okay, you hear my music at Target, cool. Guess what? I'm getting a check for that.
right.
That's what I would think of it.
Well, thank you. Tell us why you chose this place.
Because I have a few bucket list places, and Toronto's one of them. Seattle was one of them. I went there last year, and I'm going to Toronto this year. And the reason why I'm going to Toronto, so for those, if you haven't recognized this, I am a member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated, and this year is my 25th year in the fraternity. And,
Ooh,
and so, yeah,
congrats.
woo indeed. So, yeah. So, my line brothers and I, when it was funny, so like we were having a conversation about like doing something because we all live in different parts of the country, and I'm like, okay, we're grown, we got passports.
Let's go somewhere.
Why don't we go somewhere like Toronto? And everybody was cool with it, so we're going to Toronto.
That's what's up. Well, that sounds like it's going to be a fantastic trip. Lots of fun. Um, Definitely have to report back on what's it like at the top of the Space Needle.
Oh, I will. And
Yeah.
let me tell you. So, well, actually, in Toronto, I think it's the CN Tower.
Okay.
So the Space Needle is in
It's
Seattle.
Seattle. Okay.
Yeah. Now I did go. Now, like when I travel, I'm not a. We have to visit all the touristy things,
Hmm.
but that was one touristy thing that I had to do because every picture of Seattle, you see the Space Needle. So we went up there, and it was awesome because you're so high up. But what was really cool about it is the floor moves.
Oh, that's
A-
scary.
And so if you sit in certain spots, give it like a half an hour, you will go completely around. Like you will see uh it was cloudy, but if it wasn't cloudy, we probably could have seen the mountains.
Hmm.
But it was, and of course they have a bar up top as they should, in my opinion. Uh but it was really, really cool. So I really look forward to visiting the CN Tower.
Very cool. Well, I mean, bravo to both of us for guessing correctly.
Yes.
We're here near the end of the interview. I have only two more questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What are some practical things young professionals can do to strengthen the quality of their resumes, especially when they're looking to pivot?
You know what? Let's let's look at my resume. um,
Ooh,
yeah, let's look at my resume. I
this
mean,
is getting
obviously it worked.
juicy.
It worked. So,
Yes.
um, where is my resume? Where is my resume? Where is my resume? Actually, um,
I have a
ah,
folder that I
here we
keep
go.
and I
Here
have
we go.
lots of different resumes. To your point, I think it is very important to customize your resume for the job that you're
Yes.
applying for.
So I have a general resume and I had a communications resume
Mhm.
because I was also looking at traditional like corporate communications jobs as well. So let's pull up my resume.
And what I would tell everyone who's listening or watching is there's no such thing as a finished, completed, done resume. As long
No.
as you're growing and evolving, your resume should also be growing and evolving as well. And so it's more important to understand how to write a good resume than it is to try to get a perfect resume. Um,
So can I don't know if I can share. Can I share my
you
screen?
can. You should. Do you see a present option at the bottom?
I do.
Go ahead and click it.
All right.
And then I will actually, I'm going to blow it up on the big screen. I'm going to remove myself so then you can kind of talk over it if you like.
This is the first time I've done this. I've never like shared my resume for the well. I mean, well, technically I do because it's on LinkedIn. But
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll create a Patreon and then with this show and we can share this content on there and I can also share my resume too.
let's see, screen. Screen two. All right, we had Chrome has lost permission to capture your screen. Okay, so we had like technical issues before. We've gotten this far, so instead of like mucking it up, I'll just walk through it.
Sure.
Okay, so on top, or you can just go to my LinkedIn and probably download my resume.
Mm,
There's no that. So I have I have a personal logo.
mhm.
When branding's a lot of things, but for me, it includes like a logo. So I have a personal, professional logo. So the logo's on top, and then my name, and then I can't believe people still do this, but some people put their home addresses,
I do.
resumes.
I
I
do.
would I would advise
Oh,
otherwise.
wait. Let's talk about this. Let's talk
Okay,
about this.
okay. So the reason why I would advise against it is because of identity theft. And so
True.
you want your resume to be seen. Like that's the point. Which means
Mhm.
anybody and everybody is going to see your resume. You That's the point. But they also see your address. So it's it's all about like protecting your identity, and I would argue protecting your safety as well. So if
Okay.
you're
Okay, I agree with that. And that's the first time I've heard that perspective. Now, with that being said, I still believe it's a good idea to include at least your city and your state. And
that's
here's
why
why.
that's what I have.
Here's why. Because if I'm, and a lot of people won't include that information because they're afraid that if they include it, they won't get the job. So here's why I include it. It's because I want them to say no. Like if I'm applying for a job that is in another state or in another part of the state. So when I was living in Los Angeles, I was applying for a job in Northern California. I put that I lived in Los Angeles. Why? Because I want that job to know that when they have that conversation with me about relocation, we're going to be talking about what that relocation money looks like, right? It's not going to be a situation where Clary's just packing up her bags and spending to $4,000 to move to be in your state so that I can work for you. No, you understand that I'm making a sacrifice as well by picking up and moving to have this job. If it's an on-site job, today's days there could be a remote work conversation that you can have. But I want to be upfront and I want to be transparent about that so that I can set myself up to be able to have that relocation or remote work conversation.
I am 100% in favor of that. Here's a quick funny story. So I interviewed for this role, and this role was 2 hours away from where I live. And so the recruiter was like, okay, this role, you have to be in the office 3 days a week. This job's 2 hours away. And I'm like, all right, cool. I got that covered. And I had that covered for the record. So I move on to the next round. It's the hiring manager and two other people on the team. And like the first thing they said was, "Hey, we have a 3 day a week in the office requirement. I see you're in Durham." I'm like, "Yes, I understand that. I'm good. I got that covered." Long story short, I didn't get the job.
Oh.
And when I asked why, they were like, "Well, they found a candidate that was local."
Mm,
Uh, but it was on my resume that I lived
right.
in 2 hours away. Like,
Exactly.
why put me through the
True.
motions?
Yes.
Like, anyways. So okay, so
Also, by the way, Kenneth likes the Patreon idea, so I
yeah,
think we're gonna have to do it.
do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
All
So
right.
okay, so I got my logo, I got my name. I have my resume website. People,
Okay.
you need your own resume website. And here's why. Because you have 100% control of your messaging and how you want and your branding on your own site. LinkedIn is great, but you are conforming your information to LinkedIn's template. But if you have your own site, it can like you can tell your story your way. If you're big on visuals, tell your story that way. And you can do it to a certain degree on LinkedIn, but if you have your own website, it's simple as yourname.com. That simple. Um, so okay, so I have my resume, my website, the city, my professional email, my phone number, and my LinkedIn link. So that's on that line right there.
And you have it hyperlinked so someone can click it and go straight to your LinkedIn.
Mhm.
That is
Yep.
very important, guys. If you
Mhm.
link, make sure the link works.
Please, please make sure the link works. Okay, so under it, I have a summary. And the summary, which needs to be updated, uh, but it says communications and content leader. And I'll just speed read it real quick. Executive, internal, and external strategic storyteller who has achieved success through cross-functional collaboration. Efforts have enhanced organizational culture and increased brand awareness. Passionate about using words, pictures, video, and graphics to create brand, voice, tone, and stories that result in increased audience understanding and revenue. Let me tell you, when I thought of that line, I was like, yeah, yeah.
Aspire.
Whew. I got
Okay,
some
but
coffee.
here's where we
Oh, but we're good. I'm sorry. All right, let me speed this up. All right.
but wait. So
Right.
first, Kenneth says the website idea is a diamond.
Yes.
Also, own your own story outside of LinkedIn algorithm. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah.
here's where you and I disagree. I tell everybody to get rid of the objective statement or the summary. And here's why.
You can go
Here's
both ways.
here's why.
Okay.
I believe that I'm going to take it to the top. Whenever I write my resume, I always put has incredible attention to detail. Okay. And so if I'm writing that in my resume has to have incredible attention to detail. That means I need to make no mistakes. I have to have incredible attention to detail, right? Show, don't just tell. Now, if I include a summary paragraph, a lot of times I believe that it adds an unnecessary layer of content where I could make a mistake, whether it's grammatical, whether it's punctuation. And instead of having that summary paragraph, I can put that in a cover letter or I can put that in my LinkedIn pitch. So when I go and I reach out to that hiring manager or that recruiter on LinkedIn, boom, that's where I put my summary.
You are not wrong by no means. And I've had resumes with it. I've had resumes without it. But here's why I kept it in, because I think of it as, okay, this person is not going to read my resume line by line, and they're not going to, I I don't think they're going to get the complete context of my career. And so my thought process is, let me make it easy for them. So if they're skimming my resume, okay, if they don't get past, because honestly, I think to a certain degree it becomes mud after like the third position you've had down. So it's like, okay, let me hit the high point, and then let me back it up a little bit. Now, here's another part where I think we're going to disagree. So after the summary statement, and this was a suggestion that I got from a career coach, core competencies. And so the ones I have include storyteller, content strategist, thought leadership strategist, and there are others. And then after that, I get down to my professional experience. Now, here's the thing with the resume. Um, we all do stuff at our jobs, but the one thing that I try to focus on is what was the impact.
Yes.
So, like, I'll give you an example. Here's a good example. Uh, and this was a role at the North Carolina Healthcare Association. First thing, conceived and launched a content hub that helped change public perception of healthcare workers during the pandemic. So, um, okay, I'll go on.
Okay, can I actually can I
Go
okay, wait, but wait.
ahead, go ahead.
I'm enjoying this. We're gonna go a little bit long because I'm really enjoying this conversation. So one, I don't disagree with you about the core competencies. In fact, um, I whenever I do resume writing, we always put a skills and qualifications section, which is similar to
Mm.
core competencies, but I actually like core competencies better than skills and qualifications. So
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
one thing. Um, and but when I do that, when I put core competencies or skills and qualifications, I will um I will customize my resume. So for example, if I'm going for a project manager role, I will put project management core competencies, project management skills and qualifications.
Hmm.
And then I will change that depending on what the actual job I'm going for. So that's one way to customize your resume in a really quick way. So I agree. Your skills and competencies go first. Um, the other thing is I actually wanted to break down your bullet point. So whenever we write bullet points, we use something called the PAR method. You want to talk about the problem, the action, and the result. And so I always make sure that all of my bullets have each one of those components. So you launched, wait, so repeat your bullet.
Conceived and launched a content hub that helped change public perception of healthcare workers during the pandemic.
Okay. So the problem was change public perception.
Hmm.
The action was conceived and launched a hub.
Hmm.
What we're missing though is the result. Do you talk about what the result of that was?
I guess the result will be help change public
Mhm.
perception.
Is there a percentage that you could add to that? So, for example, from 10% to 25%. And a lot of times we may not always have this data, but
I
so
didn't.
if we had done a survey, that might be something that could like really just strengthen that, right? Like helped change public perception or increased public perception from 10% to 80%.
And to your point, having those numbers
Yeah.
are is critical, because I could have, I could have just made that up.
That's true. You
But
can make up
you
numbers too.
right. Yeah, yeah. I'd rather not. um, well, here's another bullet point where I actually did have some numbers.
Alright.
So, um, executed video strategies that doubled applications for organizations' diversity leadership program, raised over 200K to support healthcare workers during the pandemic, and more than doubled social media engagement.
Beautiful. So, One of the problems there was to support healthcare workers
Mhm.
by what was the action?
Conceiving and launching a content hub.
Conceiving and launching a content hub, and the result were the results that Stan presented. That is the perfect example of a strong bullet point. And so that's what we should be striving for in every single one of our bullets. All right, Stan, back to you.
Um, well, and that just it now. So my resume is 3 pages, and
Whoa.
there are
How many years of experience do you have?
20.
Yeah,
So and I really thought about this. I'm like, I don't know, 3 pages. Like if I read 10 articles about length of resumes, I'm all gonna get all types of different answers. But I just went ahead with it just because, well, and I didn't, and what's crazy is I didn't include all of my roles. I think one piece of advice I got was your resume should really account for your work within the past 10 years
hmm,
and then your in detail. And so my two newspaper reporter jobs, I just have under additional professional experience.
hmm,
The paper, my title, the paper, my title. And that's that.
hmm. Yeah. Anything else to add?
Let's see. Let's see. So after my stuff, I just have my education. And I don't have when I graduated. I mean, if I fill out the job application, you know, they're gonna put one and one together. Plus, some places they're gonna do a background check anyway,
True.
so you're gonna know when I graduated. So I just have the degree, the program, and the school I went to, and that's that. Now, for a younger professional, maybe the year matters, but for someone at my experience level, not really.
Now you're touching on something really strong here. What I like most about your resume is that you actually have your education, I'm going to assume, is on the bottom.
Hmm.
And the reason why I recommend that young professionals put their education, unless you're going into a role like coding or software engineering, and it's a little different, and I'll explain why. Um, put your education at the bottom. Why? Because it actually have a whole workshop where I break down how to write a resume and why we write a resume the way we do. But your education serves as a foundation for the rest of your experience. And so that's why we put it at the
Ah.
bottom. The other reason why is literally what you just said. I lead with my experience. Why? Because I don't want to be ruled out because I'm too young, called ageism, right?
Mhm.
So if they look at my resume and they see I just graduated this year, a lot of people might rule me out and they say, well, they're too young. They don't have the experience. But if I lead with my experience, now when they get to that part of my resume where I'm talking about when I went to school, they got to think twice about it, right? Oh, they get excited about my experience. Oh my goodness, this person feels like a great fit. And then they get to my education, which is just the cherry on top that
Mhm.
just cements that experience. You also want to avoid any discrimination in terms of the quality, and I put quality in quotes, of university that you go to, right?
Mhm.
So I don't want to. So if I put that I went to a community college, then they might rule me out and say, "Oh, they went to a community college." But no, I want to get them excited about my experience, and then when they get to my education, they're like, "Oh, and this person went to a community college." the com- the narrative in their brain is different. It's going to change. And so I believe that putting your education at the bottom is one way to avoid a lot of discrimination up front.
Think of it this way: there are people that flunk out of Harvard,
Mm,
Yale, Stanford, Duke. Name whatever school you think is at the pinnacle of your educational mountain. People have flunked out of it. People have dropped out of it.
mm,
Um, I so the other day at my job, we had like a fireside chat with like this senior leader at my company. And she was like, she's from Jersey. So afterwards, I go up to her and I was like, hey, yo, you're from Jersey? Yeah, I went to school in Teaneck. And she was like, you went to Fairleigh Dickinson? I was like, yeah. She went to Fairleigh Dickinson. I was like, oh, so my little school in northern New Jersey was able to produce this one person who's a senior leader at a large pharma company. So I'm not saying your school isn't important, but what I am saying is what you do with the education really matters. Like when I was a hiring manager, when I was in Florida, okay, you went to UF. Okay, cool. They got real good J school. Oh, you went to Miami? Big private school? Good. By the way, um, Duke just beat Miami. Breaking news. So I'm a big Duke fan, huge Duke fan. Um, so you went to Miami? Okay, cool. You went to Florida State. Oh, that's what's up. You went to FAM? Okay, bet. What did you learn there? And can you do the job that I'm asking you to do? And that's ultimately where it comes to. Now, there is, and I'm sure you get into this in your workshop. Yeah, your school can matter just in terms of networks and opportunities, um, and alumni connections, professor connections, and things like that. But I'll tell you, I had 5 internships in college, and I hustled for every single one of them. I ain't had no connections through my professors. I didn't go to a big name school. It was like, hey, this is what I wanted to do, and I'm gonna make it happen. And that hustle, that grind will get you further than the fact that you went to an Ivy League school, because there are lazy people at Ivy League schools too.
Ain't that the truth? Well,
Mm,
with that said, thank you so much, Stan, for sharing your resume tips. We've got
yeah.
one more question for you
Oh, there's
before
more. Okay.
we end the show.
Yeah, do it.
It's a question we ask all of our guests that come on the show. How would you describe success?
How would I describe success? Um, by achieving your goals, whatever goal that you set out to do, if you achieve it, then you're successful. It could be something as small as, okay, I'm gonna quit smoking. And if you are able to maintain and sustain that commitment, then you're successful. And when it comes to the career, it's okay. Because I think when it comes to success, a lot of people think of the big goals. It's, I want to be the CEO, or I want to achieve this milestone or win this great big award. And I think what some people seem to miss is that there are a lot of baby steps between you being the entry level person and being the CEO. There's so much to learn. There's so much to achieve during that time span. And so success is being able to hit those goals, whatever however you set them up.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Success is achieving the goals in all the micro little baby steps along the
Uh-oh.
way.
Okay. Uh-oh. So I can't hear you again.
You can't hear me?
Yep. Nope.
Oh no.
I'm glad this is happening at the end of the show versus the beginning of the show, like last time.
Let's try this again. Can you hear me
All right,
now?
now Sheree disappeared. I don't know where she went.
Can you hear me now?
So I don't know if you guys wait. Hold on. Hello.
Can you hear me now? No.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Thumbs down. So since we can't hear each other, let me just conclude by saying, um, if you have any questions, please hit me up on LinkedIn, Stan Chambers Jr. I my profile picture is very unique, so I'm not hard to find. You can also head to my website, scjventures, LLC.com. And if you want to have a further conversation about just career, branding, presentation, resume writing, things like that, let's talk.
Well, thanks, Stan, for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure having you. And with that, we'll say good night. Peace out.